Hello, welcome along to Season 2 of Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden Williams here. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me again for this second season. I hope you had a really good summer. I took a few weeks off, school, summer holidays, all that good stuff. But it's October, we're back, and we've got more great guests for Season 2. If this is your first time joining me, Man in the Mirror is a podcast where I talk to a man or men each week and talk to them about their life, work, and about the contents of their bathroom cabinets, those key items, the things that they can't do without. And hopefully that gives me and hopefully you some tips on some products that maybe we should be looking out for, or some things that we can build into our skincare and grooming routines. In this first episode, I'm talking to Sam Geering and Josh Carter, who are the co-founders of a brand called Fiole, which is billed as the world's first online perfumery. They'll tell us a bit more about how it all works, but it's a really great intuitive platform where you don't really need to have any kind of perfume knowledge, and it will help you select 6 fragrances that aren't, you don't get their name, you just get the letter of the alphabet, and then it helps you choose your favorite. But they'll explain it far better than I can. So without further ado, Season 2, Episode 1, Sam Geering and Josh Carter of Fiole. Here we go. It's the autumn. It's a new season of Man in the Mirror. And this week I'm joined by Sam Geering and Josh Carter from the company Fiole. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
We're good, thank you. Very, very well. Excited to be here. How are you?
I'm really good. And thank you for doing it. And this is the first time on Man in the Mirror. We've just started Season 2, and this is the first time to have 2 guests. So it's exciting to have double the fun here on Man in the Mirror. So, we'll definitely get time to find out from both of you about your favourite kind of bathroom essentials. But first of all,
we both have a habit of talking too much. So as promptly as I interrupted you. So there you go.
So hopefully we don't ruin your first. Well, hopefully we're not your last double guest situation.
You won't be. It's all good. And I just wanted to find out first of all, just about how both of you, and starting with you, Sam, how your love of perfume and this whole kind of scented world, where did it come from? Is it right from childhood?
I don't really know. I've got quite a good pinpoint, though, of when I started getting into, independent fragrance or perfumery beyond the high streets, which was, I had a very fancy friend when I was about 14 or 15, and she got me the Penhaligon's scent library. And up until then, if you had a fragrance at all, it was something you'd nick from your dad or from your mum or something like that. But when I discovered this, I realized there was a world beyond the everyday, and I got really excited by it. So much so that when I first moved to London, I remember I applied for jobs at some of the Penhaligon's stores because I just fell in love with it so much. And that's sort of where my love began, and it sort of spiraled out of control from there, really.
Did you end up working at Penhaligon's?
No, I shouldn't really say this.
Did they not want you?
No, they did offer me a couple of jobs, and I was counter-offered each time. So, probably cut that bit out. I don't know, but I was offered, but I ended up working with some other people.
Amazing.
Whoops.
And Josh, how about you? Where did your love of fragrance stem from?
Mine was completely by accident. I'm a musician originally, and throughout the whole of my 20s, I was doing a lot of touring, and I needed a part-time job in between it. And I completely randomly stumbled on. I met a guy through a friend, and ended up with a job at a company called Aluminum, who were famous for making a fragrance called White Gardenia Petals that was all the rage at one point. And I just ended up in it randomly. And it was the first kind of means to an end job I'd ever done that I actually really enjoyed. And there was loads of kind of creative, artistic parallels to what I was doing outside of it. And, my first love. And just as time went on, one thing led to another. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. And here I am now.
Here you are. And I guess it'd be great to find out how you two met, and presume it's through through perfumery.
Yeah, it was. It's a pretty boring story, really. We were just working we were just working in Fortnum & Mason, both of us. I was working for Roger Dove at the time, and Sam was working for Parfum Michelef. And we were just on the shop floor together, and we just became very good friends working alongside each other. And Fortnum's is a very different environment where everybody kind of helps each other out, and everybody's very collaborative in the way that they work. So, yeah.
And when did you start working together?
So I think
in terms of the company.
So actually, Fortnum's was who counter-offered, seeing as we've come full circle now, and so that's why I ended up at Fortnum's. But then I started working for Michelef, and also after that for Grossmith, the amazing British house, in about, I think it would have been 2014, 2015, maybe early 2015. I think I already knew of Josh's existence because I'd done sort of management jobs for Fortnum's. I don't know if you knew about me, but I knew about, where people were in the store. And then in 2015, we actually started working next to each other, selling product and meeting customers. So it was about 2015, yeah.
Yeah,
so quite a while now.
We were originally talking about going into business together to create a candle company. We were actually speaking to a handful of manufacturers, and we actually had some stockists kind of agreed to buy stock in principle, which was crazy and quite exciting. But then once we did a bit of number crunching, we realized that it was going to be trickier than we perhaps liked. So we abandoned it for a little while and went our own ways. And it wasn't until Sam started an agency just before the pandemic on his own that eventually I came and joined up to help with the growth of the company. And then when the pandemic happened, that sprung the Fiole idea.
Sam, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about Fiole and exactly what it is for people who aren't aware of it.
100%. So Fiole is an online fragrance platform for independent fragrance houses that also helps people who maybe disillusioned by fragrance or unsure what they want discover a new fragrance through our Fiole fragrance finder, which I'll let Josh explain in a second, and our Fiole boxes, whether that be for a special occasion or for a new signature scent. It really helps people find something unique and good and perfect for them, really.
Amazing. And yeah, it'd be great, Josh, if you can explain, because actually I should say at this point that I met Sam and Josh in Fortnum & Mason's, but I guess it was the early days of you thinking about Fiole, and I got to experience an early form of your sort of perfume finder technology, which was amazing. And it's much more about it's sort of blind sampling, isn't it, Josh? It's sort of less about knowing about brands and names and stripping all of that away and sort of, yeah, the kind of intuitive way of finding out about fragrance. Would you like to tell us a bit more about it?
Sure, that's exactly right. When we were working for other fragrance houses, one of the things that you do when you're working for, very wonderful artistic houses is you learn absolutely everything that you can about everything there is to know about fragrance. And after a while of dealing with clients one-on-one, you realize that a lot of that knowledge is, I don't want to say wasted, but semi-useless from a customer point of view. Because if you're just looking for a really lovely fragrance to wear out or to wear in the day-to-day, most people aren't interested in the nuts and bolts of it. And the fragrance industry has a habit of overcomplicating things in our experience. So when we created Fiole, we wanted to essentially recreate a kind of luxury personal shopping experience, but that is easy for anybody to use. So we completely remove subjectivity. It removes any jargon or anything that could be remotely confusing. And when you receive a personalized sample set, we call them, it comes with 6 different fragrances from a variety of brands that match your preferences. So you set your preferences and then you receive recommendations in the post. And then when you receive your box, they're unmarked. And that is so that you can allow your nose to do the talking for you, essentially. We teach you a very simple method. It's really easy, simple method to go through all of them and decide which one is your favorite. And then once you've decided on your favorite, you can open what we call a reveal booklet, which is a little sealed envelope inside your box. And that reveals to you your favorite fragrance. So we're the only platform that I'm aware of that can get you from completely knowing nothing all the way to your absolute number one favorite fragrance in a very short period of time and without you knowing anything about it until you find it.
And it's such a great way, isn't it? Because like you say, I think often, it's quite easy to get carried away in say the jargon and the terminology of fragrance, but it's sort of easy to forget how off-putting some of that stuff can be. And we'll talk to our mates about it's perfume or skincare or whatever, and actually it feels like sometimes people are missing out on the joy of it because it can feel quite an alien world, and people don't necessarily want to venture into some the big department stores or some of the expensive boutiques and just go and sample. So this feels like a really kind of a democratic way of people doing that and very intuitive. And like you say, I think
everything holds its own level of subjectivity, So if we show a guy a scent and show him a bottle that's bright pink and say, this is called Pretty Princess, he's going to probably in today's society immediately associate that with a feminine scent. But the subjectivity that he holds in his subconscious about the scent inside that bottle is completely different. So if you just give him the scent, I'm not saying we're trying to get guys to buy Pretty Princess
Pretty
perfume,
Princess.
But
sounds like a winner.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It completely changes your opinion of it. And that goes all the way through to from color and names and design, but also through to ingredients. A lot of people prejudge fragrances based on ingredients. I can't tell you the number of people that I've spoken to who have said, oh, don't show me anything with rose. Don't show me anything sweet. And in the end, they leave with something sweet and packed full of rose because actually they're judging that fragrance on some completely different element of subjectivity.
Yeah, that might be kind of arbitrary.
Just to add to what you were saying also, Hayden, about helping people who maybe have no experience with fragrance before discover something they love. What's been great is we've definitely been able to do that. But with people who know a lot about fragrance, like yourself, we've also been able to sort of accurately match your tastes depending on mood or moment. And I think people have been pleasantly surprised at how accurate the system is. And on top of that, with what you were saying about sort of department stores or perfumeries for independent fragrance can often be daunting, scary places. So we've sort of been able to provide access to independent perfumery and these wonderful brands that maybe some people didn't have because they were not comfortable going into these settings. And also we've been able to provide access to them for people who don't have access to them. Maybe they don't live near enough to London or something. So it's been super interesting to see our customers sort of develop all over the UK. I mean, in particular, like in Scotland, we've seen in some of the sort of far reaches of Scotland, people ordering from us because they want those fragrances and they want to try them first, but they haven't really had access to them without having to go into a big city or something.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, none of us are immune to the sort of prejudging and the idea that, I don't like this brand or I don't like this note or whatever it is. And it's so great to do that sort of blind testing thing and actually challenge yourself. Because you say that, a lot of ingredients are there's infinite ways that they can be blended and mixed. And you might say, oh, I don't like rose at all, but then find it works perfectly in harmony with something else. And suddenly there's a fragrance you love. So it's a brilliant, it seems like a brilliant technique. And I'll add in the show notes, the website and more details where people can find out about the Fiole experience. I'm sure we'll come back to it, guys, but I also want to find out on Man in the Mirror just a bit more about your, beyond fragrance, I suppose, in your sort of skincare and grooming regimes. And it's always a great opportunity to find out about some key items and some key products that really work for you and the sort of hero products on your sort of bathroom shelf. Sam, are there certain things for you in terms of skincare and grooming that you always like to have? Are there sort of key products that you would always take away in a toilet bag or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. So I've dabbled with lots of different sort of products for skincare, etc. I'm now pretty stuck on The Ordinary.
You set on a routine, are you?
Yeah. Do you know The Ordinary? I mean, I think everyone knows it at the moment. Yeah.
Yes.
It's slightly life-changing. And it's such good value and the products do just what I want, sort of thing. So I use some hydrating serums, some exfoliating serums, and then the usual moisturizer and vitamin C. And then also always an SPF.
Good.
I had my first hydrofacial.
Oh, did you?
Recently, which was life-changing as well. Not ordinary
Tell me
prices,
about that.
though.
What happens with that?
So instead of the usual form of facial, it's done with water jets, basically. And it's super hydrating.
Wow.
And yeah, I've definitely felt the biggest change after a facial I've ever had. I felt like I was glowing for weeks. And on top of that, they removed a lot of, block pores and so on. And they also told me about the SPF. So I don't know what brand it is I use now, sorry. But I'm always applying an SPF at the end. And one other thing I want to add is just that I used to have a really good aftershave balm from Dermalogica, and they discontinued it. And I've started, because I just used an electric razor. I've last couple of years, I've been using just the Nivea one I can get in Boots. It's like a post-shave balm. It's not expensive, and that I swear by as well, because I have quite sort of reactive skin when I shave.
Yeah.
And it cools it down like straight away. So that's a winner for me.
And do you electric shave every day, Sam?
Pretty much. Sometimes I'll skip a day. I mean, you can't see me now. I skipped a day today because I knew this was audio. But yeah, otherwise it would be every day, yeah.
And do you find that this routine that you've got into, do you find it quite easy to sort of build it into your morning and evening? Is it not a big trial? Are you quite sort of good with it?
I love routine. So I think it sort of fits with me quite well. I need routine and regularity. So I'm almost not the best person to ask if I find it easy or not, because I do find it easy, because you could give me 12 steps before I go to bed and I would quite enjoy having to do them. But it is easy. It takes 2 minutes. After you brush your teeth, I just pop that on. It's very quick.
Yeah. No, you're right though. I think that, it's not often talked about enough how that actually, building those kind of routines in, far from being kind of a pain, sometimes, you can definitely find some comfort and it's, quite good for your mental health to sort of to make you feel better for a start, but just have these regular routines at the start or the end of the day to either kind of get you going or just calm you down. I think there's a lot to be said for it, isn't there?
100%. It's better than being on your phone or something, isn't it, than before you go to bed. So, even if it takes 10 minutes, it's a good wind down.
So if Sam's brand is The Ordinary, Josh, how about you? Have you got a certain brand that you go to, or do you like to sort of pick and choose from a variety?
To be honest, I'm pretty simple. I don't really have I will after this podcast, but I don't really have a
SPF.
Yeah,
Josh,
no, I don't
SPF?
have a complex setup. I'm quite lucky in that I shave every day, and I don't have particularly reactive skin, so I just morning and night will wash my face and use moisturizer. But if this was Desert Island Discs, my luxury item would be my shaving kit. So I am big on my shaving in the sense that...
So tell me about that. Are you a wet shaver or electric like Sam? What do you do?
Both. So I have I wouldn't say a beard, but a stubbly face. So I would electric shave it down, and then I've got a Trumper sandalwood soap, which I love, and a classic looking, it's quite modern, but it looks classic kind of shaving kit that my wife got me. And I'm quite meticulous with that. And that, again, that's a similar thing. I quite enjoy the routine of that. And I don't ever really feel made up in the day unless I'm, shaved up neatly and wearing a fragrance. That's kind of that's my routine.
But it's interesting that you would, if I'm got this right, you'd electric shave every day, but kind of finish off with a wet shave. Is that right?
I would electric shave probably every
blade.
Yeah, a blade. So I would electric shave once every few days, and I would always kind of neaten the edges with a blade every day.
And we should talk about fragrance then. So obviously it's such a big part of both of your lives. Josh, what have you gone for today? What did you choose this morning?
Today I'm wearing, even though it's getting colder, I'm still in my summer zone. So I'm wearing called Vervain d'Été, which is from a French brand that we've literally just launched called Le Jardin Retrouvé.
Ah, yes.
That is so, so nice. It's very simple and unassuming, but we both fell in love with it instantly. It's all vegan and cruelty-free and made with sustainable materials, and it's just exceptional. I love them. My taste with fragrance, even though I work in it, are actually quite simple. I just like a lot of very fresh, clean, crowd-pleasy style perfumes.
And
that is just, that one has sung to me. So I've worn that all summer and I'm still wearing it today.
And I remember meeting them at your event in the summer, and it was a new brand to me, but it's so beautiful. The passion that they have, but it's such an interesting range, isn't it? I think there was their candles and other products as well. It's beautiful.
They're very, the two of them, Clara and Michelle, that own it, they are infectious the way they talk about it, and you can really spend 2 minutes with them and you can really feel the kind of passion and drive that goes into it. And there's so much detail that goes into everything to do with their products. But at the same time, the fragrances are just really easy to get on with, all of them, from the fresh stuff that I like all the way through to the very rich, kind of darker fragrances that they have. They're just easygoing and very easy, very like lovable.
Yeah, sort of unpretentious perfumery.
Absolutely,
is good. Yeah. And Sam, how about you? What are you wearing today?
So I feel a bit naughty because I'm also wearing a Le Jardin Retrouvé. But, when it's new, we get excited. We do change it up. I remember when we started Fiole, my mum had a Fiole box and she tried all 6 and she took about 2 weeks to decide on one. And the one that she thought she disliked the most, she ended up favouring after 2 weeks of wearing it. And that was one called Neroli Blanc by Au Pays de Fleur d'Oranger, which is a small little Grassoise brand. Beautiful stuff. But she really didn't think she liked it at the beginning. Now she loves it. And I've had that exact same thing with Jardin Retrouvé fragrance called Bois Tabac Virginia, which is not my usual style at all. I definitely appreciated how beautiful it was and how brilliant it was. But I have just gone absolutely nuts for it over the last week. And it's sort of a rich tobacco with sandalwood and patchouli, and reminiscent of like 1920s fragrance, but still super contemporary. And I think I'm also excited about the fact that it's getting colder. Josh is still living in summer, sort of pretending, wishing that it's still a heat wave.
He's there with his light breezy citruses.
Exactly, in his swimming trunks. And here am I sort of desperately waiting to be able to put a thicker jumper on because I hate the sort of in-between weather. So me with my roll neck on in 16 degrees and Bois Tabac Virginia is the way I've been going and living for the last week. So yeah, it's a real winner.
There's something about, the season shifts and being fragrance lovers as we all are, just sort of that moment where you feel like, not like it's a certain day, but when you start to access some different, more seasonal fragrances, now for autumn. I love it. And just sort of rediscovering some favorites that you haven't sprayed for, a year or whatever. And especially when autumn comes around and you kind of want to get a bit cozier and wear some of those more enveloping scents. It's a good time of year, I think.
It really is. Yeah. I respect people, however they want to wear fragrance, whether they want one for the whole year or if they have a special occasion one or, all these sort of things.
Yeah.
But I could not live without changing at least by season, because in the summer, I don't want something super rich and opulent. And in the winter, I don't want something fresh and crisp. It's as simple and black and white as that for me. So yeah, I really look forward to the change. I find it soothing.
I'm the other way. I'm fresh all year round. I don't, not always citrusy. I kind of get brighter and more citric in the summer, but freshness. I just like to smell clean and ready for the day.
Yeah, no, I get that. But even within the sort of fresher fragrances, there's still, you'll know thousands of them. There's plenty of fragrances that have got a bit more depth and character and darkness going on underneath, isn't there? It doesn't mean they all have to be super kind of
100%
or tobacco-y or
don't get us started on Sydney Rockpool by Arquiste, but that's exactly how we feel about that one. Yeah,
exactly. Delicious. That's a really good one.
There's one I wear a lot called Crazy Hours, which is also super fresh, but it's also, like you say, I don't want to waffle about fragrance too much, but it's just so it's got nuance, it's got character, and love it.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? Finding one that, sometimes those fresher fragrances, can be dismissed as, to just disappear too quickly or just a bit ephemeral. But I think, if you can find one that's got that character and that sort of really calls to you as well, I think it's a good thing. And it sounds like that's what you've found there, Josh.
Mm.
I wanted to ask as well, because, Man in the Mirror, for the most part, I guess we're talking to men about their lives and sort of products and things that work for them. Have you found in your time, either working on the shop floor, as it were, or now with Fiole, have you seen a change in how men approach fragrance? Do you think it's? I mean, obviously, with some of the more niche brands, it's much more kind of unisex. But have you seen a change in how men are kind of approaching perfume these days?
Yeah, I think that we're currently in the middle of a turnaround. When we first started working in fragrance, most men that would come into the stores and brands that we worked with used to just assume that everything was for women.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that. And when we actually started Fiole, we will rarely say the word perfume. We'll always say the word fragrance, because there's still a kind of underlying assumption that perfume is for women and cologne is for men. But now that's actually, you can feel it starting to shift. Men are taking, paying a lot more attention to their own health, I guess, mental health as well, and their own well-being, and using products and skincare regimes and all that kind of stuff plays a part, like we were saying. So there is definitely a shift. I think we've got a way to go yet, but there's definitely been a shift.
What I would also say to that is, what I find fascinating about fragrance in general is, I think if we're going to sort of be specific on two genders, in the middle, obviously anyone who doesn't identify with a gender, I think are going to be more open to expression. But people who sort of associate traditionally with being a man or a male, I find don't have necessarily confidence in wearing things like makeup or skincare or something. But yet they have always seemed to feel it was appropriate to wear, let's put it in inverted commas, aftershave or something. That was the sort of accessible beauty product for men. And I think they really would therefore take a lot of pride in it and time over choosing what they wore, etc. There was Josh talking about his shaving soap and things earlier. It was, I would say maybe like 10 years ago, there was a real wave in that becoming a real thing, because I think people were, or men were so desperate to try and add to their beauty regime. And now we're at a point, as Josh said, where there's a long way to go, but we're definitely further along now where people can feel more confident trying different things, wearing a bit of makeup. I mean, look at the brand Warpaint. Things have definitely come on a long way. Obviously, we still have to genderize that makeup brand, i.e. Warpaint, and it has to be masculine. But if that's helping people get more confident, then great. I mean, that's a really, really good positive thing. And I think fragrance is just going to ride that wave really, really nicely. It's interesting on Fiole. This isn't the case for the sample sets, but for full products, the majority of a higher percentage of our customers are male than they are female.
Are they? Mm-hmm. And do you think that's, I mean, I guess we'll never know unless you do sort of, in-depth questionnaires with your customers. But do you think some of that might be about what we were saying about the retail environment and sometimes not being necessarily very, friendly for men, or just feeling a bit intimidating? Do you think that might be something to do with it?
Definitely. Yeah, I reckon there's definitely something in that. Maybe not for everybody, but there's just, one of the perks that we didn't expect to come out of Fiole is exactly that. When you find a fragrance through Fiole's mechanism, you can do it in the comfort of your own home, at your own time, with no judgment. You just do it the way you want to do it. There's nobody watching you or judging you or anything like that. So it definitely feels like that's given nervous people. And I would imagine men that are, feel a bit embarrassed about enjoying some luxury items, beauty items for themselves. Yeah, I reckon that's given people a gateway.
And I think there's even, the whole idea of going, whether, it doesn't matter whether it's Boots or a department store or whatever, the whole idea of going up to a counter and sort of then asking the sales assistant, to sort of work through some different fragrances or whatever it is. I mean, A, it's time consuming. B, it requires, quite a lot of confidence to go there and then, to take up that sales assistant's time and to say, well, no, I like that one, I don't like that one. All of which I guess is different with Fiole, because like you said, it's done at your leisure, done at home. I can totally see why. I think totally see why everybody, and particularly men, would appreciate that, because we're not always, for better or worse, I think, you don't always feel like those stores are set up with men in mind, and you've got to be pretty sure of yourself to sort of stride up and sample 10 different fragrances or skincare, whatever it might be, let alone find the advice or find the right section in the store. So, I can totally see why it works.
There's something in, like, when we first launched, I think there was a bit of doubt in the air that something that's essentially tech could lead you towards a product that is inherently artistic and humanistic in a way. But if you tell a fragrance finder, or our fragrance finder, if you tell it, I want rich, leathery, woody, that is exactly what it will give you. You will never tell it one thing and it will give you something else. But in a store, you are also, and I don't mean to sound mean about this, but you are at the mercy of the sales assistant if you're not helping yourself.
Yeah. So
if that sales assistant is tired, or, got something on their mind, or they forget something, or maybe they're just not very good, they might not be able to help you in the way that you're hoping. And I know that makes it sound like fragrances, makes it sound like overly complex. But one of the joys about what we do, or one of the joys I take from what we do, is taking something that is inherently complex and making it feel very simple for a customer. And that's actually something, although it seems simple when you're doing it, it's something that comes from a hell of a lot of planning, and thought, and not everybody is giving that.
Yeah, and both of your knowledge and expertise. Yeah, I think so, it's really interesting. And I think the other thing we often forget about those department stores, and it's the sort of, the sort of guilty secret, is they're often sort of, a certain distributor will be, on a certain counter. And so you really, if you're asking for advice, you're not going to get the full range of fragrances offered to you. You're going to get the ones that are they're, commissioned or incentivized to tell you about, or the ones that are, within their knowledge base, or, on their counters. And that's not everything, is it? They're going to offer you the ones that they're trying to sell you. So.
And also, not to get too geeky about it, but there's subjectivity in that as well. If you come to speak to a person in a store and you ask for something amazing, they're going to show you what they think is amazing. And that's different to you. So,
Yeah. Another thing I like to try and find out from guests on Man in the Mirror is, was how you feel about your appearance as you look in the mirror. I know both Josh and Sam, and they're a bit younger than me, but are you, Sam, first of all, are you at a stage where you're really comfortable with your appearance? Has that been a sort of an evolution, or have you always been that way? How do you feel about the Sam that looks back at you in the mirror?
I mean, are we ever completely happy with our appearance?
I mean, I'm not.
Maybe if you're very vain, but I mean, I look back at me, I don't know, 8 years ago, and I wish I'd known. But now, no, I've joined a cult called F45, so I'm exercising much more. So I'm feeling better about, I can eat what I want to an extent now, which is great.
What do you do? What's the exercise? What do you do?
It's HIIT classes, but mixed between resistance and cardio. Every day's separate. This isn't meant to be an advert, but it is brilliant, and I love it, and I swear by it. So it is a cult. And
you get 5% for every new sign up.
Yeah. Shout out to Barry, who runs the studio, and he is great there. And my biggest thing is my hairline. I think I've gone through a lot of different phases with it. I think I would pretend I came to terms with it a couple of years ago, but I've only really come to terms with it about sort of 6 months ago. I was pre-COVID, I was going to get a hair transplant, and everyone was trying to sell me one. Yeah. I wasn't going to go abroad because I wanted the aftercare. I think that's really important advice, actually, having gone through the experience of almost getting one. And then I ended up with one surgeon who said he wouldn't give me one hair transplant because he said he wasn't sure if I'd, done all the alternative treatments first, i.e. taken some medication and used Regain and so on. And so then after a few years, I went back about 6 months ago to see him again, to see if he would give me one. And he said he would do one now, but then sort of reinforced the fact that it's not completely permanent. It's not going to be comfortable. It takes a year to fully heal and to grow back. And the more I thought about it, I just thought, I'm on this medication now. It's keeping my hair where it sort of is to an extent. I'm sure it will go eventually. But really, I think if I hadn't started a few years ago, I think I'd probably be pretty much bald now, or closer to it. And so do I really want to go through that sort of level of surgery to keep something that's not really necessarily going to last very long and be very uncomfortable? And the answer is no. So I'm much more confident with that now. So at the moment, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I would change things if I could in that sense, but I wouldn't change anything else, really. I'm happy.
It's really interesting, Sam. And actually, that subject hasn't really come up on the podcast before. No, but I really appreciate your honesty about it. But it sounds like you've almost come to, without sounding trite about it, but that sort of acceptance point, that
100%.
That's when you can say, okay, well, yeah, you explored the options, but I suppose you kind of weigh it up and say, well, yeah, would it make me a better me, a happier me? And there's the inconvenience and the pain and all those things. So I suppose, you by going through that conversation with yourself, I guess sounds like you've arrived at a place where you're more accepting and being sort of kinder to yourself about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting it hasn't come up though, because for men, it's such a thing. Hair loss is like the biggest thing we go through, and so many men are quiet about it. I'd happily speak to anyone about the journey I've been on, because it was really reassuring and awakening. And the fact that obviously it's all private, healthcare, you have to pay for a hair transplant. People are just trying to sell it to you. So I already know a couple of people who had one, 2-3 years ago, as recently as that, spent a fortune on it.
And it's not worked.
And now is shaving their heads.
Really?
And I think that's even worse in many ways, because you've gone through that trauma and now you've ended up not even with the result you want. Yeah. And I'm so glad that I didn't do that. I think they do work. And I think for some people they can be great, but I think we've just got to realize that they're not a solution yet. We're not there yet with hair loss. I'm sure we will get there eventually.
Kudos to that initial surgeon that you saw, who like you say, had the opportunity to take a bunch of money off you, but actually said, "Are you sure you've explored the alternatives?" Which is, maybe I'm doing a disservice, but that's brilliant, good, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a guy at a clinic called Farjo. I'll say it loudly because I couldn't recommend that enough, because I went to 4 other clinics before and I was about to put a deposit down on one. And then something told me to go get one more, consultation. And this, I hope it doesn't get him in trouble for saying this. I think they do a lot of people's hair transplants, so I'm sure it's not going to. But, that was such important advice. But yeah, And
it sounds like you'd imagine, you'd hope that that's the sort of ethical way to approach it anyway, isn't it? To sort of make sure, whenever anyone's making big changes like that in their appearance, you'd want to hope that you've had the opportunity to, think it through and explore other things.
100%.
That seems like the right thing to do. And Josh, how about you? What's your relationship with your appearance? And has it changed over time?
Definitely. I'm a little bit older than Sam, and
lots older.
in the last few years has been the first time that I've noticed real changes in my body and in the way I look. And as I get older, I've been one of these people that in my 20s I've been quite lucky. I've always been very slight, and I've spent pretty much all of my life up until 2-3 years ago being able to eat and drink whatever I want, as much as I want, and never really put on any weight or see any change, which is, I'm not, unaware.
You're that guy.
I'm not, I am aware of how lucky I have been to have that. But now actually, the effects are really, now that I'm getting older, the effects are really starting to set in. So, if I'm working out and doing exercise a lot more than I used to. I basically...
Do you go to the same class as Josh? Has he got you in?
He's still trying to sell me, but I haven't yet. But maybe I will. But so I'm doing that a lot more, whereas I never really felt the need when in my 20s. And now in my early 30s, I feel the need now. But also just general signs of aging, the changes in my face and grey hairs, and just generally just little subtle changes that maybe some people don't notice, maybe they do. So I'm like now, just a bit more, I'm very aware of taking care of myself now. I feel like in the past 3 years, I've suddenly gone into a zone where, I'm exercising more. I watch what I eat more. I'm a lot more conscious of what goes in my body and, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it sounds like you're in a really good place.
I don't feel, in any way bad about that. I think I'm probably overdue, solid health kicks and stuff. So it's about time, really. I really started taking care of myself properly. So that's what I've started to do. But I'm also I'm very open to the idea of looking a bit older. I've always been the guy with a baby face, that I feel like every age that I've ever been at, and I feel like every age that I will ever be, somebody will go, "Oh, you're so young." It's been one of those like bugbears for me, almost. Where
And how do you feel about that? Is that annoying?
I think people see it as like, "Oh God, you look so young," as a compliment, and then after a while, you're like, "Oh." I know it sounds awful to say it like that, but because I do have a bit of like a childish, feminine face. I don't know.
I know what you mean, but it's just how I guess, like you say, giving people the credit, you think, well, maybe they're trying to be, complimentary, but it's how you receive it, isn't it? I suppose it doesn't, and after lots of times, maybe it's annoying.
People are always trying to be nice, and don't get me wrong. Maybe I will kick myself for saying something like that in the years to come. But I'm kind of enjoying starting to look a bit older. I think I look my age now, so I'm and I'm quite grateful for that in a weird way.
That's good. Josh, what are the things that make you happy? I mean, it could be a sort of a trivial thing or a big thing, but what's happiness to you?
I'm very much a family and friends man. I got married last year, and I have a boy who's 1.5 years old.
Oh, fantastic!
And they are my absolute, my absolute world. And I'm very lucky to have a family that I love spending time with and friends that I love spending time with. So that's real number one for me. It's simple, but I'm very happy like that. I just love being free to spend time with them and, have a nice time and be surrounded by people that I love and respect.
And outside of your work and fragrance, and I know you're a musician and a music lover, I presume that's a big passion and a thing that brings you joy as well.
It does. It absolutely does. It's also my biggest tormentor because, I have adored it since I was 11 years old. And I think up until probably 5 years ago, well, maybe even less time ago, I think that's all I wanted to be living and breathing it and not doing anything else. And that's been a bit of an adjustment for me, kind of realizing that in order to have the kind of career that I think I want in the music world, it entails being away from the people that I love a lot, because I play rock music, and the main way to make money off of rock music and make a living is by touring.
Tour around, yeah.
So and I did a lot of that, and I have done a lot of that, and I've loved every second of it. But now, especially now that I have a baby boy, do I want to spend the rest of my life living in a tour van? I don't think so. But at the same time, it is part of my blood, music. I'm never going to get rid of it. I think about it every day. I write music every day. So even if it's only for 20 minutes or so, I don't think I'm ever going to give it up. But I'm at a strange stage in my life where I'm kind of realigning my relationship with it. And I'm not quite sure what the outcome will be. But and at the same time, I'm not sure I'll ever know. I'm not sure I'll ever be fully happy with my relationship with it, which is what I mean about it being my greatest tormentor.
But how great to always to have that talent and have that outlet for your another outlet for your creative endeavors, and to be able to sing and like you say, whatever form it takes, it's a real gift though, isn't it? It's having a passion like that.
It totally is. It totally is. I think those kinds of passions are wonderful to have, but they're also very hard earned. Like, I don't know anybody that, because I know you have a background in music as well. I don't know that anybody that was involved in music hasn't really devoted themselves to it at some point. You know, there's everybody in that industry or doing those kinds of things, even if they just play an instrument, will have had to make some sacrifices to get to that point.
Yeah.
But once you have it, it is wonderful, you know, to be able to kick back and play an instrument every now and then.
Yeah. And Sam, how about you? What are the things that bring you joy and happiness?
I suppose similar to Josh in some ways. I think Friends is definitely at the top of it, you know, along with chocolate and things like that. But on the less trivial side, I think Friends.
What's your chocolate of choice, though? What would you
any, Hayden. Seriously, not fussy. Just unwrap it and give it to me. I mean, really.
If we had to narrow it down, are we talking sort of fancy premium, you know, high percentage dark chocolate, or sort of, you know, like something dirty from the garage, or what, or any of it?
If I had to sort of choose two, I mean, there's quite a lot of sort of basic sort of, you know, Maltesery, Cadbury's things that honestly would keep me really happy. But then also Paul A. Young, do you know him? Oh
no,
he's like the real Willy Wonka. Oh, right. He's I think he's only got one shop in Angel now, but honestly, like, they are just the best. I think that sort of feeds into another thing that sort of makes me happy, because I love, you know, food and I love cooking, but it's really about doing those things with my friends and experiencing those things that I love with other people who also love them, and also being able to sort of, you know, cook for friends or something and them getting the same sort of passion, or seeing friends happy as well. I mean, you know, especially if it's over something mutual, like, it's just makes me very happy. I mean, I've been to too many weddings this year. It's that sort of, I'm at that sort of age now. At that stage, yeah. But it's been really interesting to see how emotional I've got. I'm not a particularly emotional person, at least I didn't think I was, until I started going to these weddings. I mean, I went to Josh's, he was blubbing like a baby, but that was last year.
I am the opposite. I'm emotional about everything.
But even I set off at you there. Oh yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, that's not me, and I'm finding I'm crying at a lot of weddings. Who knew? So seeing people happy is obviously a big one for me as well. So yeah, I think
it's interesting you said about, you know, being sociable and food, and I guess there's, you know, you're both obviously sensory kind of people. So it's interesting that, you know, there's so many people that I talk to who have a love of, you know, fragrance or skincare and those things, and it often goes hand in hand with enjoying good food, doesn't it? Or wine or things like that.
Yeah, I really want to get more into wine. I want to know more about wine so I can be more. But cocktails, I think I've sort of been able to teach myself more, because they're a bit more black and white, aren't they? A bit more like a perfume. You can layer them with different flavors or different smell. And so I found that sort of easier. So making friends cocktails is sort of up there as well. A good cocktail is nothing better.
It's funny, isn't it? Wine. I guess, you know, we've talked about some of our passions today, but, you know, I still at nearly 50, you know, I went out with some work colleagues yesterday, and it was this wine bar place, and it's still something that makes me just feel a bit inadequate and uneasy, and I'm not an expert in any way, and I just let other people choose, and I don't feel like, and I can enjoy it, but I don't feel like I know enough about what makes good or bad, and I don't know.
We both love a wine, don't get me wrong, but we've done perfume events in the past that are almost a bit like tasting style, and we've often said to people that this is going to be like a wine tasting, but where you actually can smell what the difference is that we're describing to you.
It's true. Maybe people say that about perfumes and things as well, and maybe, you know, differences that we might pick up and then that people don't always get. But yeah, I definitely think that about wine. And, you know, is that thing of, you know, if you did your Fiole kind of, you know, blind testing of wine, I guess you'd have to be, you know, if people really knew their stuff, they could probably pick out the good stuff. But it must be it's a whole other thing where you're also influenced by the price and the label and what someone else tells you. It's a whole other world, isn't it, I suppose?
I think being able to really tell the differences, like genuinely tell the differences between wines and what's good and what's bad is a real skill. Like I tip my hat to anybody that can do it.
We should get a group of us fragrance fans together and go on a short course, see if we can manage.
Yeah.
But again, all that stuff about you know, landscape and where they grow the vines and all that stuff, it's all very tied in. You know, that you have to know a lot about raw materials and where things are grown, and there's a lot of a lot of commonalities, isn't there, with all that stuff, I suppose. I think it'd be fascinating. Maybe, yeah, I should do that now, get more into wine. Well, look, thank you so much to both of you. It's been so great. And I think we've coped okay with having two guests. I think it's worked well. But it's been so great to find out more about Fiole. And I'll add some information to the show notes and tell people where they can find you online and on the socials. But really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me on Man in the Mirror. And I'll see you both very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Hayden. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Sam. Bye, Josh.
Bye.
Bye.
Massive thanks to Sam and Josh there from Fiole. I don't know what happens. I think whenever I start recording this podcast, there's generally some building work that happens. And I hope that didn't disturb too much. There's some building going on a couple of doors down, but I record this at home, so what you going to do? You can find out more about Fiole at fiole.co.uk. Now, it might be spelt differently to how it sounds. It's Fiole. That's fiole.co.uk. That's Fiole. And on Instagram at Fiole UK. That's Fiole UK. Fiole UK. Yeah, really interesting platform. I think they're doing some really innovative stuff. And yeah, it takes some of the prejudices out of fragrance shopping and just you use your intuition and it delivers these samples and then you can choose one, which I think is it's a really interesting way. But it's built on their expertise from real life and from working in store. So do check them out. Speaking of socials, you can find Man in the Mirror at Man in the Mirror Pod on Instagram. So thank you for joining me this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks to Sam and Josh, and thanks to you for listening. I'll see you next time on Man in the Mirror. Take care.